We go across now to my colleague Audrey Chimwanda to understand the 10 points or charge sheet of the members of parliament and what they want investigated as a wider scope in terms of state capture. It's over to you, Audrey. Good evening.
Very good evening to you, Cindy, and to Edwin, of course, to all our viewers at home. Thank you for joining us. Just going through the resolutions from members of parliament and what they want probed. First, the Ruperts, the Oppenheimers and the business elite's control of South Africa's financial sector. Also Treasury, South African Reserve Bank, the Financial Intelligence Centre, the Public Investment Corporation and the FSB and their work against government and to South Africa's detriment. Taking a look at further charges there, the Treasury, the SARB, the FIC, etc. operate in the interest of only a few instead of the majority. Taking a look at charge number 4, many South African companies enjoy very high profit margins, often up to 50% higher than in other nations. Some more charges coming up there. We go to charge number 5 now. Treasury protects its friends at the business elite, and this must be investigated. Taking a look now at charge number 6, discrimination in granting banking licenses has allowed 4 banks to dominate South Africa's financial services sector. Taking a look now at charge number 7, in 2006, the South African Reserve Bank blocked a small acquisition to create a new black-owned challenger bank. Charge number 8 now, a percentage of black shareholders in Absa, Standard Bank and the First National Bank are 6%, 5% and 3% respectively. Taking a look at charge number 9 now, the PIC manages 1.857 trillion rand, but they invest very little to support ordinary and small South African entrepreneurs. Those are the resolutions. Taking a look at charge number 10 before I come back to you, Cindy. The FSB invests 90% of its funds in a select few companies. The majority are controlled by interconnected elite. Those are the 10 charges that we have for you. And we cross back live to you in studio, Cindy, and to you, Edwin, as well.
Thanks so much, Audrey. The lines are open 011-542-2186, or you can tweet at ANN7TV or at I am Cindy Mabi, and we'll try to read those on air. Joining us live in studio is Zanele Luana, Deputy National Convener of Black First and Land First Movement. Tsepo Khadima is a political analyst. We are expecting Botsang Muilwa in a bit. Good evening to you. Welcome to a brand new week. Of course, newspaper headlines have got everybody in it, but there's also a new development when it comes to trying to redress the issues that still plague South Africa: inequality, poverty, joblessness. What do you make out of 90 MPs today saying to the public protector, please just spread the scope of the so-called state of capture? We'll start with you, ladies first.
Good evening, Cindy, and good evening to your listeners as well. Well, we've been clear on this issue as the Black First, Land First movement. If you remember, also, we lodged a similar complaint with the public protector while Thuli Madonsela was still the public protector, to say she needs to expand her terms of reference when she looks into the issue of state of capture. And we were quite direct and clear that we have white settler monopoly capital in this country that has monopolized all strategic sectors of the economy. And because of their power and influence, they are able to influence decision making and on how governance, how this country is run in this country. But obviously, we know how the office of the public protector under Thuli Madonsela was being used by opposition parties such as the Democratic Alliance as an office or as a weapon for regime change. She totally refused to do that. It's good to see that members of parliament are actually saying there's something wrong with the dominant narrative in South Africa while people remain landless, while all sectors of the economy still remain white in a country that is black. It's a good thing that the MPs are doing, and it then puts at the center the problem to say South Africa is a country where we live in poverty as black people because white settlers have monopolized everything and they continue to preside over industries that still remain untransformed and exploit and oppress our own people on a day-to-day basis. We do hope that the current sitting public protector is going to take this into consideration, is going to be quite empirical on how untransformed South Africa still remains. And we do hope that we will dismiss useless claims from people like Blade Zimande, for example. Blade Zimande, when he was addressing a meeting today, he says there is no such a thing as white settler monopoly capital, for example. It's an invention by the Guptas, for example. It's an invention by parties such as BLF who are funded by the Guptas, for example. And we are quite clear to say we reject that. In fact, in South Africa, there's not even a party. We don't have a communist party. We have a communist party that is a bodyguard of white settler monopoly capital in this country.
Yeah, I want to come in there in terms of, if you just do basic math, there's 249, give or take, the members of parliament, and you take the 90 that have boldly taken the step to say, let's investigate. Yes, we understand that there is an existing state of capture report that is under review, and it only focuses on one particular family and the president. What happens then to the rest of the monopoly in terms of our economy, which is glaring? You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that there's inequality in South Africa. So the 159 outstanding MPs, are they the ones who, one could argue, are benefiting or are shareholders in these major conglomerates?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how they respond. I mean, you're talking about 249 members of parliament of the African National Congress, for example, but I would like to extend it to all the 400 members of parliament. In fact, they are duty-bound to have to be concerned and come up with solutions or be part of the solution on how we address unemployment, which is at unprecedented levels, inequality and poverty. So they are duty-bound in that regard. But, well, we should applaud the 90 that have now come forth. Most certainly, I think that just demonstrates the level of seriousness that we now need to start approaching these issues. That really, I would say that this is a three-headed monster for our country that really has to be tackled. Now, if we look at our administration now, and even the previous administration during the apartheid era, I'll describe it this way, you know. Those that are religious will know that temporal sins carry the promise of a punishment on the hereafter. Financial sins are punishable in the present. In South Africa right now, we are being punished severely for the financial sins that we have committed. And it's somebody somewhere has to redeem us from that. And the people that need to redeem us from that are the executive, and that is the president, and specifically the Minister of Finance as well. They have to redeem us from those financial sins that have been committed, which we are now suffering from. I mean, if you look at what these MPs are asking that be investigated, I most wholeheartedly agree with them. I mean, earlier on I was showing you that, you know, here in my pocket, I'm happy I've got a 20 rand note.
Hey, and
then I've got a 10 rand note.
I'll have to investigate.
But those that are at home probably are not aware that the 10 rand note that I have here and the 20 rand note, they are so worn out. But the person who signed them, the governor who signed these two bank notes that I have, is none other than Governor Lesetja Kganyago. But these notes will not even run for another year. In fact, if I went to a foreign country, these two bank notes I have in my hand will not be accepted. And the reason I'm making is the following, that the issuance of our currency is now controlled by foreigners. The printing of our money is printed by a European private company. And thus it means that we as a country, we no longer have sovereignty. And the reason why this note is wearing out so quickly is because the people that signed the contract without recourse even to the president, I suspect that there must have been some inducement that they were given, hence the need for investigation of the South African Reserve Bank. Because once your monetary policy is controlled by foreigners, you as a country are no longer there. So I'm saying this to demonstrate why the South African Reserve Bank needs to be investigated beyond even its ownership. That right now you've got money that is in circulation, that in fact you can't even trust that indeed it is money that is proper. And I think the governor of the Reserve Bank by now should have had the gumption to remedy that situation which he inherited from Jill Marcus. What governor wants to go and have a bank note that is like a piece of blue paper?
Let's welcome Butsang Muila. He joins us tonight here on ANN7 on the big debate. Butsang, welcome.
Good evening and good evening to the fellow panelists and your viewers. I see Tsepo is becoming religious and talking, referring to the Bible. This is interesting.
Because this is a good way finally to say that if the probe gets underway and it's widened as these MPs want, it's a good way to finally transform the South African economy.
That is absolutely correct. But let me slightly differ with my colleague here. You see, the first problem that we are faced with is this so-called 90 MPs behind the scenes approaching the public protector. That is already a very clear sign that individual MPs who are supposed to be serving the best interest of the country and approach the public protector's office, which is an office created by a statute of parliament, they were supposed to be going there collectively. Now, each one of them sneak out representing their individual political parties and their interests to go and try and persuade the public protector to put in front or the priority files of what their political parties represent. That is wrong. I'm not excited about it. I'm not excited that 90 MPs have individually approached the public protector to come and look at this whole scope. I would be very excited if the parliament would have approached the public protector, and parliament I'm talking about the parliament of the Republic of South Africa, not individual political parties. They would approach that office and say, there is an incomplete report. We should not shy from saying the report of the previous public protector, it was incomplete. Therefore, we would like you to complete this report, and each and every political party gives an input. Because if we are going to look at the state capture and look at the so-called Gupta's capture of the state and so forth, and we look at a company like Oak Bay, which is having only about 6% of government contracts, and we think that is state capture, then we are fooled as a nation. We should look at if Oak Bay as a company or the Guptas as a family or business people have captured 6% of government contracts, not of the economy, of government contracts, and we call it state capture. That cannot be. Why is the other 94%? We all know, colleagues, that black people in this country, they've got only access to 3% of government contracts. Where is the other 91% of government contracts going to? So when we look at the state capture, we should also not look at it only from the term where Jacob Zuma, the president of the country, has been the president of the country. This has been happening since before 1994. I'm sitting and I'm saying this state, the post-democracy state of South Africa, was captured long before 1994, because we know how the Oppenheimers, we know how the Ruperts have controlled and governed the economy of this country. So when we look at state capture, we must not take it at scheme and face value. We should look at it in depth. We should look at it historically. What was the intended purpose? And we cannot, guys, talk about anything in the economy of the country when the land ownership, and when I talk land, I don't talk about your townhouse. I don't talk about the house where I live in. I'm talking about the minerals, the mines, the game farms, the mountains and the rivers, everything that produces GDP of the country. That's what we are talking about, and we should investigate it entirely.
Yeah, all right, let's get callers. PC in Grunstadt and John in Katlehong. Thanks for your patience. Good evening to you. And what's your view on the 90 MPs approaching the public protector to investigate state capture in its entirety? Please switch off your TV, PC. I can hear myself in the background.
Thank you very much, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm good.
So what do you have to say about this latest development?
I think I fully agree with those MPs and also the ministers that are calling for widening of the capturing report to everybody before 1994. I think that view, it's very clear. Yeah, there are also ministers who have forgotten that they were put there as ministers by the very president that they are against. And then also, I was watching the Marikana on the TV, what happened there. Now the deputy president is coming and saying, I'm sorry. He pretends to be working with Jacob Zuma, but outside there, he's fighting him, he's talking ill about him, Blatant Zimande, We are from the Communist Party. We are from COSATU. The COSATU that is talking today, we don't know what got into them. That is why NUMSA got out of them, out of the federation.
I think if I get you concur, and I'm sorry to cut you, we do have other callers, that this needs to be taken prior to 94. This country didn't only exist with the democratic elections, and that, you know, essentially our leaders are also compromised, those that do benefit from the multi or well-established business, so to speak. John in Katlehong, good evening to you. Hi, John.
Pansula from Katlehong. Yes, I'm going to just be short.
Okay.
First and foremost, this is a good move. We are very happy, and we wish each and everything that oppositions always cry about, we should investigate it thoroughly and broadly. So just in short, what I'm going to just tell is that now we are going to see the real mafias. And then from this point of view, I just want people to watch from this thing why Pravin Gordhan and Cyril Ramaphosa were protecting each other. We have to know how to Ramaphosa be a billionaire. Even Matthew Posa, all these people who are against this radical transformation, you can see they were trying to block this kind of thing. So this is a good move. It's going to explode. It's going to show the real mafia. And as a black person, as a revolutionary, I'm not going to be having mercy. I'm just saying even the Cyril Ramaphosa, Matthew Posa, even Talimpov, all these other people who are like also the monopoly capitalist.
All right.
From the black side.
All right, John, thanks so much. Mlungisi in Joburg, good evening to you.
Good evening, Sissy. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I just want to comment on this state capture thing brought in. I'm very happy to hear this. And it's nokuthi futhi ngathi they can probe the former public protector uThuli Madonsela to say why was the investigation only focused on this particular family. They call them a particular family, the Guptas. Why not the Oppenheimers? Why not the Ruperts? We want to know. I'm really happy.
Let's just bring it in reaction to our callers, and I think the concern is that it needs to come to a conclusion. This is one thing to speak in circles.
Our first caller actually mentioned something very interesting about the opposition parties. Surely if this is going to be an investigation that will get the whole country to a certain point, transform our economy, there shouldn't be any objection to it, should there?
No, there shouldn't. Actually, I think into this debate, we must also talk about the internal audit of the National Treasury and how it is implicated that an amount of about 4.3 billion was looted out of the Treasury under the leadership of the ex-finance minister, people like Pravin Gordhan, and how white mainstream media, which pushes a pro-regime change agenda, is totally not saying anything about this magnitude of corruption. Rather, we are being shown fake conversations between some people and the president, but the real corruption and how Treasury remains an institution that is captured by white settler monopoly capital, that remains an institution to close down all opportunities for black people and this government to respond to the needs of black people in this country. We must also be quite clear that the media, the opposition itself, is quite mum on people like Cyril Ramaphosa, Pravin Gordhan. Anyone who is against the president is protected by the media because they feed into the fake news agenda of telling black people, assuming that we are unthinking, of course, to say our problems are with the president and the Gupta, as if this country has done anything to move forward, to move us forward as a people. The opposition party now, they must come out, they must take a stand. Most of these opposition parties, including civil society, where it says South Africa, for example, where it is indicated that an amount of about 4 billion has been looted, amount that is just enough, for example, to provide free education to the landless people.
Sorry, Zanele. Patrick in Tembisa is calling. Good evening to you, Patrick. Welcome.
Good evening. How are you, ma'am?
Very well. How are you?
I'm good. I just have a question for your panel there. Only 2 questions. My first question I think the first one is perfect. Who must go to public protector? If it's anyone who must go to public protector, which means the people who went to public protector for the Gupta family were not wrong. The third capture report is not complete. The only thing that they must do, you must go to public protector to make sure that each and everyone who is not able with this one, they must investigate other people, like people that they were mentioning there. My second comment is about the lady there from BLS. I want to know who's BLS representing. Because it looks like it's few people, but the way they are talking is like they are representing maybe a lot of people. I was there over the weekend, where they have a rally or something like that. I don't understand exactly what they are doing. At least, to be honest with you, at least they must be honest with what they are representing. Who are they representing?
All right, Patrick, thank you so much. Gift in Midrand, good evening to you. Welcome.
Hello, Cindy. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm okay, Cindy. The panelists as well.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me, Cindy?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Cindy, let me just put it like this way. Firstly, we've got a beautiful country in South Africa, but we've got a problem when it comes to the way that the state is being run. We used to march up and down, shot by tear gases, left, right, and center. They are even now unemployed, sitting at home. I've got 2 kids and a wife. I'm not working. But I try to make ends meet, Cindy. At the end of the day, we need a country that has got a direction whereby everybody can benefit. It doesn't matter whether we are led by a white person, we are led by a female, or we are led by a male.
No, point taken. Sorry, your line is also not very clear. We have another caller on the line. Sorry, I missed your name. Good evening to you and welcome. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's Jeff here from Kagiso.
Welcome.
Yes. Cindy, I was just saying, I'm very happy with what has transpired here. Because this thing also, we can look it back to the case of Nkandla, whereby only president was implicated. But, my question was, with some of the ministers that were given the task to foresee the project there, who signed from the 200,000 to 2 million, things like that. People are getting away with murder and with corruption, and then they act as if they are God. So let this go on, and let's see at the end of the day what's going to happen. So I'm very happy, the real things will come out now.
All right, much appreciated, Jeff. Thanks.
I want to just raise 3 issues, and I want to go back to the previous caller who spoke about people like Tsepo must go to the public protector to report what transpired at the Treasury. That is actually absolutely wrong. We do not need the public protector to go and investigate an official internal audit at the Treasury, because that is an official audit of government. What we need is, we have SCOPA in Parliament. We have a parliamentary committee or portfolio committee of Parliament in public finances or into public accounts. Those are the people who are supposed to now call in the Minister of Finance or the Director General of Finance to come and account to Parliament how did it happen that there's an internal audit that was not brought up to the attention of Parliament, that was not brought up to the attention of the Hawks, because it has become very clear that there were corrupt activities that transpired when that transaction happened. I mean, it's 2014, this is now 2017, and we have been having the so-called top-class, highly regarded, well-respected ministers who are clean. This, actually, if you look at the records of this country, happened under Minister Nene. And then it continued under Minister Pravin Gordhan. And what is sad and what is shocking is, I don't have confidence in the so-called white media, because they will never report this. But I've got a problem with technocrats in government, the director generals. I've got a problem with SCOPA. How did SCOPA for 2 years miss an internal audit? How did Treasury get a clean audit of the Auditor General, which normally will look at what the internal audit, that is government processes. That's how government works. Now, how did we miss that as a nation? That there is corruption, there's maladministration, there's a unit at Treasury that has been siphoning money out of government into a private company like business or BizNet and looting actually government. And this is the Treasury that is supposed to be the custodian and the watchdog of government coffers and government monies. And that's what we should be looking at. We don't even have to go and bother the Public Protector's Office and waste money in investing on investigations that will not bear fruit. We should go to that report and break it down and see to it what actually transpired and why was it not brought to the attention of the Parliament, the parliamentary committees, and the public as well. That's what we should focus on.
All right, we'll come back. We're in our studio discussion. On the phone line, we have Gift. We had Gift. Sibamba from Rustenburg. Good evening to you and thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Very well, how are you?
I'm fine.
What's your comment or question?
My problem is that I hear people, they mention from 1994 to date with the state capture. Our problem with our government is that they didn't take the advice from Madiba. The advice from Madiba was that the people must go to school. Now, after this time, we've got 23 years in power. Our problem is that our leadership as the African National Congress, it seems as if they are among us. If they can leave the young people to get in, this problem of state capture, it is because they are not considering the fact that they must move.
Okay, so I'm calling for an injection or infusion of younger leaders. We have Sfiso Etegwini. Good evening to you. So your question or comment, Sfiso?
Comment sikhathele ngempela labantu sihlezi sibuka la kulama TV bajaha ukuthi nishuthe down i-ANN7 ANN7 ayindawo ithina sikhokhela ama TV ethu la aba investigate ngalaba bo Rupert labo Oppenheimer bonke labo sikhathele belokho beface indaba kumsholozi into engekho umsholozi is there to stay ithina esamvotela ngesizwe ngabanye abantu iParliament lela alibuyele kuthina ukuze umsholozi aphume uwavotelwa ithina akayindawo lezi indaba abayikhipha lezakhe isho uthuli madonsela laba ngenxa labelungu laba abasupportayo ifile yonke lento sibheke la active sibheke nini ukuthi sinenzani siyabona impela qhubekani investigation lapho sibhekile.
All right, siyabonga kakhulu Siso Etegwini saying that he supports the probe beyond 94 and that President Zuma is a democratically elected president that will only be dethroned, if you will, by the people. I think there's John on the line. Hello to you, John. Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, welcome. Oh, Joe.
Hi. It's Joe from Middleburg in Mpumalanga.
Yebo, kunjani?
Ngiyaphila sisi. Sisi ndiyazi this is very interesting. I like the panelists that you always have there, and the listeners that are always phoning. I think it's time for South African people to really sit down, relook, do this thing by using stop check, self-correct, because we are always in defense of people who are corrupt to the core, and the truth is there for everyone to see. Let them comment about what the ministers, especially the one who was with the public works, who claimed that there was no corruption in Gandla. If there is corruption, he can pay it by himself. And it was found out, and the president threw them under the bus, all of them. And some of them resigned as a chief whip in parliament. But instead of being disciplined, Baba Susa, from one position to that, you see, the ANC has got the biggest problem. It's not individually. We are talking about the organization that is corrupt to the core. Let's visit before 1994 the talks, Codesa 1, Codesa 2. Who was paying for the leaders, hotels and stuff like that when they were busy negotiating? Because they had no money.
No, Sevumelana, now we need to go beyond 94.
This must be investigated deeply, and those panelists of yours, those who are so-called independent, but yet they are biased. You know, they get us out of line. Please let them address issues as they are, as political analysts.
All right.
Thanks, Joe.
It's Joe. We've looked at Treasury. You spoke about the SAB. I mean, there's others. There's the FSB. There's the FIC, and the biggest of them all is the PIC, which controls trillions and trillions of rand that could be used to that could basically sort out the South African economy if it was properly invested. How will this work if an investigation starts tomorrow? It's a big issue. It's a big undertaking.
Not necessarily. I think there are key issues that you can look at, and you can be able to very expeditiously come to a conclusion from such an investigation. I mean, just thinking aloud. Let's think back to 1959. 1959, we saw one Anton Rupert being able to do something miraculous with the then J.G. Stradom, who was the prime minister before we became a republic, externalized the company that is now today known as Remgro. And that was done with inside information. That is a conclusion you can reach, because immediately after the externalization of what is now Remgro, come 1961, we became a republic, and 1962, 63, we had foreign exchange controls, effectively closing the doors. So was that move to Luxembourg, was it a move using inside information? It has to be investigated. Fast forward to 1994. 1994, thereafter, we saw conglomerates. There was the key word when you look at in the early 90s was unbundling. Was consolidation in the banking sector, but unbundling. Unbundling of companies that were effectively conglomerates because of exchange controls, but some of those companies were then externalized out of this country under the guise that they needed to access the capital markets overseas, therefore robbing this country of companies that today could have been on the World Fortune 500 and therefore being able to continue investing in this economy. Those companies, who held them? It was none other than Trevor Manuel as the Minister of Finance. Today, he sits on the board as chairman of Old Mutual. He sits on the board of SA Breweries, and his investments and his financial interest certainly have put him in the line of fire. That must be investigated, because such cannot be allowed to continue that in the manner that it has. So certainly I think these things we can come to a quick end. But what are some of the solutions? Some of the things that we are advocating. Minister of Finance is very critical. He needs to have nerves of steel. He needs to tackle the issues. For example, he needs to move away from our debt.
He needs to realize that Treasury is in bed with big business.
The PIC issue, let me respond to that, to add what Tsepo is actually far-fetching it, and which is very factual. But you asked directly about the PIC, the Public Investment Corporation. Those are public monies. Those are taxpayers' monies. The largest employer in the country has been the Public Service post-1994. We need, and I agree with him, we need the Minister of Finance to rise with all other ministers of economic development to come down and say, we've got this pot full of money, which are public monies, which are investment money that must be in there. And that's what the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers did towards 1994. They were very brave to go and lie to the people about dismantling what used to be called Barclays Bank, which came out as First National Bank, and it came out as ABSA. This was a whole long-term 50-year plan. And that's what we must do as a nation. We should say, we've got coffers, we've got the PIC, there's public monies there amounting to trillions, as you said. They must use those monies for the benefit of the poor people. Majority of people who work for the public service are coming from poor families. They've got extended families in rural areas. We should use those investments. We must be brave. We must take a situation whereby we are using these pensions of public servants to, in Afrikaans they say, verbeter, to improve the lives of black poor people in rural areas. The government has to be brave. It's not going to be a simple thing, but they must be brave.
Meneer Moelwa, ons het mense wat bel. And Sfiso in Johannesburg, good evening to you, and thanks for your patience.
Yes, good evening, Cindy, and good evening to the panelists there. Cindy, the problem that is coming now, our new public protector is going to be rubbished in these newspapers, in these white media-owned newspapers. We thank ANN7 for giving us the fair news.
other things we didn't even know if it wasn't for ANN7. So I'm just saying that new public protector, she must be strong, she must do her job well. We really need this real state capture and not that thing of Thuli Madonsela. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thanks so much. Temba in Pretoria, good evening to you.
Well, no, my name is Martin, but it's not Temba anyway.
Oh, Matimba, I beg your pardon.
Okay, it's okay. Look, I believe where there is smoke, there is fire, you know? So the only thing is there's a true media out there, right, for the population, for all South African citizens, and there's also propaganda, you understand? So there's two, they're actually creating a battlefield, sort of like battlefield in each and every one of those who watch. You know, ANC contradicts with ENCA. I mean, ANC gives you the pure, genuine news, right? And then ANC come and contradict ANC come and contradict ENCA. So I think the media itself is actually killing the population. You're giving people the wrong information.
Matimba, I'm sorry. Maybe we'll have another roundtable just to discuss media independence and ownership. But I think for today's discussion, in terms of 90 MPs at least raising their hand and say, look, it cannot be right. It's disingenuous to say that one family has captured the state, and in fact, some quotes would even say that Atul Gupta is the president of this country, so that you and I can inform ourselves. Can we just please go back to the Berlin Congress, for example, on how Africa was split amongst European and all vested interests, so that we inform ourselves, even if you see a media report, that you can interrogate it, okay?
Okay, can I say something then? Okay, is it okay if I can pose
very briefly, please.
Okay. Very quickly. Look, the people are saying this family is linked with the president, right? So, but then if it's like that, it means the population of the population has to be concerned. It doesn't. If President Zuma wasn't linked to Gupta family, then Gupta family would be treated as other families. But then the problem is because of he is linked with the Gupta family.
Let's investigate everybody.
Okay.
I'm saying let's not be selective in who to investigate. I think that's the move today.
But Timba is unfortunately misinformed. I think very important. Pravin Gordhan's daughter is in a number of companies. One of them is a bank, and one of them is companies in telecoms. And there is information that has come out of Treasury that one of the companies she's involved in has secured a tender at National Treasury when the father was minister. And there was no hullabaloo from the so-called independent media, from the so-called true news agencies. They never once even raised the issue of conflict of interest. Had it been one of President's children, then of course there would have been a hullabaloo. Therefore, it means that we as a country now are living in the true state of what George Orwell said, Animal Farm. But all animals are equal, some are more equal than the others. We can't have double standards. We must apply the principle consistently at all material times. So this double standards is nothing but hypocrisy that is drawing this country into the pits.
Add to that very quickly, Cindy. One, President Mandela himself, actually, he worked with the Oppenheimers and the Ruperts. We know he worked with Nikki. Trevor Manuel himself, with his wife, who was the governor of the Reserve Bank, their wedding took place at the Rupert's farm. So what is this thing of saying political office bearers cannot have relationships with certain families?
And then come to Zanele. Paul in Cape Town, good evening to you, and thanks for joining us. Hi, Paul. All right, don't. Hi, there you are. Good evening.
Arthur.
Arthur.
Not Paul. Arthur.
Arthur. Okay, I beg your pardon, Arthur.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, good evening.
Right. My point is short and sweet. All I want to say is this whole thing of state capture is not something new. It didn't happen with the Zuma government. State capture has been happening for years. You know, whilst the National Party was still in power, state capture was happening. It was just unfortunate that what the ANC did, they did what other governments are doing all over the world. State capture is almost like a common denominator all around the world. It's just that the ANC, unfortunately, Shane, they only knew 23 years old, in running a country. They still don't know the techniques of how to do state capture without being exposed to the world outside. Thank you.
All right, we're going to leave Shem.
Shem,
They're still learning the tricks of trying to...
Where do we put Malusi Gigaba and Fiso Buthelezi in this situation? Because they're also part of the 90 MPs, and they're the ones who are supposed to be running Treasury at the moment. Have they been left with a baby in the bathwater, or...?
I just want to say the greatest corruption and the greatest crime against humanity was the taking of the land of black people by white settlers in this country who have monopolized all strategic sectors of the economy in this country. That's the problem. That's what we need to address. And I also want to be clear that we must not be seduced by people who are trying to defocus us and make us focus on side issues that do not speak on how we should respond to the needs of our people in this country. We must support the 90 MPs who have asked for the extension of terms of reference with regards to the state of capture report, particularly a direct investigation to white settler monopoly capital, directly an investigation to people like Johan Rupert, an investigation to the families of the Oppenheimers. I also want to put it out clear that we are in war. Our people don't seem to recognize this, that we are divided as a people from the ordinary to people who are in government. We have a faction that wants to entrench white settler monopoly capital in this country. We have a section in leadership that wants to retain the status quo. And we have people like myself, like my movement, and many other progressive sectors of the society who are saying, but South Africa is first and foremost a black country, and we should respond to this. Leaders, particularly of the African National Congress, must support the call from the president to say we need land expropriation without compensation. People like Malusi Gigaba must stop being scared. They must stop seeking advice from institutions of imperialism such as the IMF and World Bank. People who are in governance, who are in power, must grow balls. It's war. They must direct the enemy. The enemy of black liberation in this country is white settler monopoly capital, and how it continues to buy opposition parties and change narrative on how the civil society responds to the real corruption. That's what we must. Anyone, particularly in the ANC, I say, who is in government and is against radical transformation of the economy, which is what this report or this probe by the MPs, that's how the public protector should respond, should extend the terms of reference. And we must walk out with a clear solution on how we are going to rescue us as a people from a life of humiliation and poverty in this country. Our people that are in leadership, they must grow balls. ANC must stop being scared of white people in this country. We are black. We are the majority in this country. The Nkandla thing, the president even paid back the money anyway. It's a side issue. We are landless, we are jobless, we are hungry, we have no education. We must unite, all of us, and fight white settler monopoly capital in this country.
All right, let's take a call. Babalo in the Eastern Cape. Good evening to you. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, good evening and welcome.
Kunjani?
Siyaphila sinezwa nini?
Ngiyaphila. Sisindi mna igama ngolubabalo wase Eastern Cape eBizana. I can see into yobana noko iyasicacisela singabahlali balapha eSouth Africa into yoba intoni le ingafunelwa umsholozi kangaka. Noko I think mna lento ye-investigate lento eyenzeka phakathi kwa Treasury izokwazi ukusincedisa uba kuvele nabanye abantu ba-corrupt baloko bephosa ukuthi umsholozi is not a good president.
Lubabalo siyabulela kakhulu enkosi, essentially saying this is the tip of the iceberg, and the reason why President Jacob Zuma is loath is because he wants to drive a narrative that seeks to include all South African and predominantly the black disenfranchised. We have another caller. Good evening to you. I'm sorry I missed your name. Hello? Mpho, hi.
Hello?
Hi, Mpho, good evening.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead. Mpho?
Hi, minjani Sisindi?
Siyaphila akho nto embi kunjani?
Ngiyaphila nabaguest lapha e-studio ngicela ukubabulisa. You know,
Mpho ngeshwa, we just lost you again. Benjamin is on the line. Hi, Benjamin.
Hello, yes, how are you, Cindy?
Good, thank you.
All right, I just want to thank AN7 and also BLF for the great job that they're doing. You know, what happens in our country is that when ANC liberate us, they make a very big mistake because they just set themselves on the back. When Moses went to Egypt to liberate Israel, they didn't carry along the Egyptians to Israel. Even God makes sure that the Egyptians must have to follow them. So the problem now, we are trying something that we created ourselves. By calling these people, when they will run this country before, these people that are governing this country alone, they were supposed to be just given the status to stay in South Africa, not to be involved in our politics or in our country. Now we're trying. That's because we just invited these people.
All right, Benjamin, thanks so much. Just rounding it off in terms of the public protectors. Yeah, I'm sorry, Butsang, we're really out of time.
Deputy.
Yeah.
They are in big trouble. You know, the cans of worms or Pandora boxes being opened. More and more names will come out of people who are having business vested interest in government coffers. And Malusi Gugaba will have to rise. He will have to be very firm and take the bull by its own horns. It is not only the Guptas or Jacob Zuma who are implicated or suspected to be corrupt. Let us investigate the whole process as a nation. Let everybody be investigated on their role in trying to capture not the state politically, but the state economically, because that's where the problem is.
Does the public protector, though, have the mandate to go beyond the advent of democracy and get to the bottom of the state?
Absolutely. There's no legal impediment in that being done. I know that former public protector advocate Tulima Tonzela alleged that it's legally wrong. There's no legal impediment. But what I'm picking up is that from the callers and from just general South African populace is that now there is hope and confidence. And we have to welcome this because it is with hope and confidence that apartheid was defeated. It was with hope and confidence by the masses that Nelson Mandela was released from prison. It is that hope and confidence that now, as it emerges, it needs to be encouraged to ensure that these very important issues for future generations, they can be tackled now, and we owe it to future generations to tackle it now. So therefore, let us resist all those that are trying to discourage and those that are trying to distract us from, as a nation, being able to move forward. Investigate everything. Everything must come out in the open. And once it comes out in the open, we must have the courage to be able to take the hardest decisions, and particularly against the offenders. I mean, earlier on, what Buzang was saying then, I was just discussing with him off air that the Gupta family, for example, or Ogbay, from their own financial results that are audited, only 6% of their income, not of government revenue, of their own income as a business, only 6% is derived from government contracts. So therefore, in that, with audited financials, nobody has ever been able to come up and dispute that 6%, which is of their own income, that is from government contracts. Therefore, let us now cast the net wider. Let us look at, for the 4 trillion rand GDP, who is participating in it, who is gaining what, and who's gaining what from the 1 trillion rand, which is government spent. And for the capital projects, who is gaining what. Once we do that, we'll find that it is the majority foreign-owned or companies that used to be South Africans that were externalized, which must be investigated, and the offenders must be punished. And those offenders, unfortunately, are people who still call themselves struggle stalwarts and that they were liberators, whether then the day they just confined us to slavery.
Just for more information, people wanting to get a different perspective, Zanele, we're seriously out of time. What the BLF does in, I suppose, creating awareness and getting people to see the real issues in this country.
Yeah, people can go on our website. It's blf.org. blf.org.za. But they can also check us on social media as well. We are easily accessible. But I wanted to stress this point to say that as the landless people, we are divided. We are busy fighting over side issues in this country. You are either with Cyril, you are either with Zizi Kodwa, you are either with Blade, who are all mouthpieces and bulldogs of white settler monopoly capital, or you take a conscious decision and support the president of this country and defend the president from an imperialist onslaught from those who want to keep us in bondage as black people.
All right, that's where we'll leave it, and thanks indeed for joining us. Busang Muiloa, political analyst, Zanele Luana, Deputy National Convener of Black First, Land First, and Tsepo Khadima, political analyst. You at home, our most valued panelists, thanks indeed for calling in.
Good night.